Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, Hour 2, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Hope you're enjoying yourself today. Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, and producer Brian Leonard. The corn off today for Passover. Again, we wish you a blessed Passover if you are celebrating, and also happy Easter this weekend if you're doing so. Right now in Doug Kingsmore Stadium, Clemson with a 4-0 lead. That game is in the second. Fielder's choice basically reached by Jolly, and then an RBI single from Wharton. Also, Kyle Wilkie with an RBI single that brought home 2. Clemson 4 runs in the opening inning. They have a 4-0 lead on Boston College after winning yesterday in double-digit fashion. South Carolina, a 6-1 win yesterday over Tennessee. They are just underway against the Volunteers at Founders Park. We'll keep you updated on both those games. Also, Charleston had a 4-0 lead at last check over Georgia Southern. We'll keep you updated on that one as well. But first, before we go any further, we bring in our friend George Bryan III for our Birdies and Bogeys segment of the week. Not only, of course, our chance to look at what's going on in the Houston Open, but our first look at what we'll see next week in Augusta. How excited, George, is young Wesley for that chance to take on Old Augusta's National Golf Club?
Well, good evening, and what I can tell you, he's bubbling, and as a PGA Tour sophomore, he's staircasing into walking his dreams. So It's some new territory for him. Not that he hadn't played in a major and hadn't been in big events, but this is something that as young folks, we just dream about stuff like this for so many years. So it'll be a lot of fun. It already is a lot of fun.
As far as your just looking at the course, knowing it well, and of course what he's been able to do in his preliminary work, where do you think the advantages lie for Wesley's game at Augusta?
Hey, what I can tell you that I hope it pays off, but I'm really proud. He's done the preparation at the highest level. He's been exposed all his life to great information from the time he was a little fella. He can't remember all that he's been exposed to, but he has really been doing the preparation, looking at old video and old film of previous events, especially up around the greens. And I got that information from his golf big brother, who is his I'll say his confidant. Wesley doesn't really have a teacher or a coach. Wesley's his own, but Chase Butler, who basically grew up in golf with Wesley, has been down to Augusta and talking with him about his golf game in recent weeks. And so I'm getting this information primarily through Chase. I forget to talk to Wesley about all the details of his preparation, but Chase does tell me that he's going through what Wesley knows to do, and he understands how to prepare, and he's doing it from a mental standpoint, trying to get a game plan ready. Most people have no idea how complicated it is up close to the hole there. That's where the game is played at Augusta, is very close to the hole, staying in position to truly have a chance at making a putt, getting the ball to go in. That's everything at Augusta, just staying in position. So Wesley's doing his homework, and I'm really proud of that.
With all the homework, still, there has to be that feeling that I can master this. And put on your hat as an instructor, George, and tell me, a lot of athletes in all sports, and even doctors and attorneys, when they have to go into court or have surgery, they visualize themselves being successful in their next act. Does Wesley even use that? I know we're not talking about dreams, but just sitting there thinking, visualizing each shot, each hole that he studied, and seeing himself being successful.
Professor, you saw this boy grow up, and you know the answer to the question, and I love it when a guy like you asks such. You doggone right. He visualizes. He loves that, and he. What I can tell you about somewhere like Augusta is you visualize and prepare, but when you get into the moment there, the emotions, especially for a young fella, they're going to be probably at a place that he's not familiar. So it'll become a game for him of just emotional and excitement, emotional control and excitement, and I can tell you he's in his mind. He's won a lot of tournaments, and especially U.S. Opens, and the visualizing before this event and putting himself in those situations. I have to believe it'll help. I don't know how much yet. We'll have to find out. It'll be a lot of fun asking him, talking to him after that first round. How did the visualization compare to the actual? But I'll tell you what. He, along with most of the other players out there, they spend a lot of time on this topic.
Again,
a lot of time.
The tour right now in Houston, it was formerly the Shelley Houston Open. The sponsorship ended last year. Bo Hostler, your leader, at 11 under par. He had a 4 under today. Big group at 10 under with Sam Ryder, Ricky Fowler, Kevin Tway. Among those there, 2 back is Jordan Spieth at 9 under par. Matt Kuchar also at 8 under par among the other notables going in there. Again, a lot of the players taking off this week in order to prepare for the Masters in Augusta. I have to ask you about the Tiger factor. How much of a factor do you see Eldrick making on this weekend's tournament?
It wouldn't surprise me if Tiger Woods was right in the middle of it, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if he won. And it's one of those things that you got to see it and up close and feel it, and I've seen it more than once. His game is phenomenal, and he doesn't have that current feeling. But talking about somebody visualizing, Professor, I can promise you, Tiger Woods is probably the best in the world at getting his head in the right place. And if he is tracking and he does get a grip on his game, he will win that tournament. And the reason I say that is he's done it before, and he can connect. He's older now. He's way more mature. Plenty of time to do his mental work. And if his game's right, if he's got the right short game, to some degree driver control, Tiger Woods can definitely win this event. But also it's kind of cool to see Phil Mickelson lurking around. And I think Ricky Fowler's due. He's playing great this week. I think Ricky is due to contend and even win his first event. So this one's shaping up. I see Stenson's playing good, and some other big names are playing well right now. Jordan Spieth's playing well, but it would be really cool to see Tiger and Phil contend, and that can easily happen.
Well, you were reading my mind, George, because I was about to ask you about Ricky Fowler, because here's a guy that it's almost, you hate to use the term, but it's almost like a tease. He looks phenomenal at times, and then something gets lost in the translation with his club, and he has not been able to break through. Have you seen anything in his game where if he just does this, he could really take off and start winning?
Ricky Fowler is one of those that most people kind of forget that took David Duval a long time to win. It took Phil Mickelson a really long time to win a major. And when you want something so bad, and Ricky Fowler wants this really, really bad, it is very difficult to get out of your own way. So Ricky has been a victim of just trying too hard. And again, he's played enough of them, and he will figure out what he needs to do in a major to stay out on his own way. And that's why I brought that name up. I'll tell you another young fella who we got to watch out for. His name is John Rahm. John Rahm's playing great too. He's played Augusta a bunch. He spent this week with Wesley. So one of the things that and we've talked about this over and over, you got to see Augusta over and over. You got to know a lot. Now John Rahm's got some coaching from Sergio and also Jose Marie. I wouldn't be surprised if John Rahm didn't take a shot and even win this event.
Hit him long and not as often, GB. Thank you so much, and tell Wesley we wish him the best of luck.
Certainly will.
That's George Bryan III here with Birdies and Bogeys. We'll come back. We'll hear from one of USC's assistants, their newest assistant, when we return.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Willie P., the Professor Tom Hayes, and producer Brian Leonard. 800-956-7266. Predictions, things you want to see for the spring game. You know, it's funny how this event is involved for USC and just across the country. Again, it used to be, you know, our only chance to see anything in the spring, and even, you know, when the media got to see practice a lot, you know, we see a lot more. And now this has kind of turned into our only real exposure that we get to see from both USC and Clemson. Clemson's, again, 2 weeks from tomorrow. South Carolina's is tomorrow. And again, it turns into a kind of a circus for the fans, but also just talks about renewal. And again, I know you seem to think, and I think we all kind of at least inherently know that we're not going to learn or see much. But I also wonder about just how much this is kind of a showcase for South Carolina, and they want to show how much they have changed from a year ago. Not that a year ago was bad, but in a way, they want to at least give people something to think about, especially Georgia, who plays them in the second week of the season.
I think probably what they want to do is just give their fans a good show. Know that they're the only game in town as far as if people away watching on television on the SEC network can see them. And, of course, I think it'll probably be repeated at least one time on the network. Just showcase South Carolina. And also what that means also is to make sure the SEC network shows that where the facilities are now and the new ops building going up near the campus. But also show that the young players are going to get a shot to show what they can do. And I think in any preseason spectacle like this, you look at what the young guys for the first time playing in front of a crowd are going to kind of deport themselves as far as that's concerned. And I guess if there's any upperclassman that people want to see if he's going to break out of his shell is a guy that's had trouble with the law, has been shot, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but now has turned his life around and is set to graduate in December, and that's Shameik Blackshear.
True.
Who came in as a highly touted defensive end, and he's working with the ones and the twos on occasion on defense. And that's a guy, maybe an upperclassman people will be looking at.
Of course, we'll looking at not only the defensive line, also looking at the nickels and the Sam linebackers. That is the repertoire now set in front of Kyle Krantz, who, as a result of the new NCAA rule allowing a 10th assistant to be named on a team, many teams use this to bring in somebody extra, a lot of them promoted from within. That's what Will Muschamp did, promoted him from within, and he talked about the unit that he is in charge of now, and the fact that that unit had a very big loss, because last year, of course, you remember one of the biggest members of that nickel room was Jemias Williams, the freshman. Of course, now with the deficiencies they have at safety, they've had him play a lot more safety. Of course, he is not practicing due to off-season shoulder surgery, but now, of course, that's a position that Krantz has had to rebuild.
Well, I mean, again, and that's the thing. If you look, Chris Lamont, when he was here with us, he played corner, he played nickel, and he played safety. And that's something that we like to get a lot of our guys to be trained to play a number of positions of corner, of nickel, safety, and Jam can obviously help us. At nickel has shown they can do it, and he's safety as well. So we're gonna get as many guys in there and try to teach them the defense and go.
Who else has played nickel? Or have you taken a look at least this spring?
We've had a bunch of guys rotate through there. Keyshawn's been in there a little bit. Javon Charleston taking a couple snaps in there. Again, like I said, it's been 7. Kenneth Coleman's been in there. We've had a good group rotate through there, and like I said, it hasn't been just one. We try to get as many people in there as we can to get reps and get turns, and it's a different feel.
What's the skill set that you're looking for a nickel versus a corner versus a safety?
Well, you really want a hybrid. You want someone that can cover like a corner but will tackle like a safety, because he's going to be down in the box. Sometimes he's an extra fitter. Sometimes he's playing man-to-man. So it's a unique skill set, but we have some guys on our roster that can do it, and we're excited about it.
Your role for game day? Do you know if you'll be on the field, up in the box, how they'll use you during game day?
We haven't discussed that. I'd imagine the press box. That's where I've been, so that's what I imagine.
Do you have a recruiting area?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Yeah. It's going to be a chunk of North Carolina and then the state of Virginia.
Is that a geographic fit for you? I mean, why that? Is that just out of a hat, or do you have some connection to that?
No, it's just Coach Muschamp wants to extend in that area, and so I'm excited. We've had some good feedback from up there, and it's been good.
What's it been like to get actually out on the road and start recruiting?
It was good. I mean, I went out the last couple weeks of January, just once the new rule came into effect, but it was really good. And, like I said, I've been around when we've had people on campus before, but to go out and do it was a good experience. I'm excited. We got a couple weeks, so it'll be good.
And the skill set for the nickel position, I guess it can kind of change from week to week, given who y'all play. How do you guys?
That's right. Yeah, it depends on who we're playing and what we're going to need to call and run. But it's a game plan thing, and but normally we like guys in there, like I said, that can cover like a corner and tackle like a safety, and a little bit of a hybrid.
Could you break down what you've seen from your Sams this spring?
Yeah, Danny Fennell's had a great spring. Bryson's had a great spring, and again, we're trying to do some stuff where we're getting them on the field a little bit more and reps and turns, and they've had a really good spring. Yeah.
When you say the 7, are those guys a part of that number?
No, those are DBs, and if you look at again, it's just getting turns and reps of guys in there and stick them in there and see what they can do. Yeah.
I want to stop down on something that Kyle said, just because I'm fascinated by the fact that he's going to be their main source in Virginia and wanting to extend. And I know that this probably is another outpost that I think South Carolina can really go in and look at, because I think there's a lot of under-recruited talent in Virginia, and I think that you have to capitalize on the fact that the 2 big Virginia schools, while UVA could be trying to go them on the rise, and Virginia Tech, while it had a lot of years of prosperity under Frank Beamer, trying to regain that under Justin Fuente, I don't know if prosperity-wise they're at the level where South Carolina is now, nor can they offer what they'll be playing with in the SEC.
Well, a lot of the Virginia kids, South Carolina has recruited Virginia before, but it's been like spot recruiting.
Right.
One of the kids that's from Virginia right now, I guess, off the top of my head, is AJ Turner.
Yes.
Who is a Virginian.
Yes,
but
from Northern Virginia,
when you go into that Virginia area, they did have a commitment from a guy a couple of years ago, I think an offensive lineman who actually committed on a local TV station in Roanoke.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think at the last minute, I guess, got the feeling that he wanted to stay close to home and ended up decommitting, and then ended up at Virginia Tech. But you're right. Anytime you can get in at Virginia, and another recruiting area that people don't think about with high school football is DC area.
Yes.
And so that's right there. Yes. So that's where you have to go as far as that's concerned. And
DC area, Dorian O'Daniel for Clemson just down the road as well. Went to good counsel. And
so it's a good place to be, and I think up and down that eastern seaboard as well. And
I mean, they don't just come from Atlanta and Florida. I mean, they come from a lot of places, and I think another guy on the roster, as I'm just scanning it from South Carolina's perspective, Blake Camper was from Virginia Beach, somebody who they're looking at to possibly be the starting right tackle for South Carolina. So that could be something that they can tap into. Jacob August, while he's from here, did go to Fork Union Military Academy in Virginia. So that's another, again, Virginia connection, if you will, at least another place where you can get players. And we've talked about that either earlier in the show or before. I remember was talking about Fork Union, but it seems that so much of what you have to do is you have to, while it is about taking care of what's happening in front of you, you need to be able to sell the reason why people are leaving the state of South Carolina. You need to sell that to other states. You need to sell it to Virginia, because not everybody wants to stay home.
No.
Everybody wants to stay home. Some people want to go out and be a trailblazer, and South Carolina offers that ability, especially in the southern Virginia areas like the Richmonds, places like that. Norfolk, you mentioned Roanoke, and obviously also the D.C. metropolitan area. 800-956-7266. Later on, we're going to talk to Tony Elliott, Clemson's offensive coordinator. But next, we'll hear from the South Carolina softball coach, Bev Smith, her number 9 Gamecocks in College Station this weekend. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as we continue here on a Friday. And I tell you what, one of the biggest surprises in the softball world is right here in our backyard in the Palmetto State, and that's the South Carolina Gamecocks off to a 29-4 start, number 9 ranking in the country, and also number 8 in the RPI. They're in College Station this weekend to take on Texas A&M. Their head coach, Beverly Smith, joins us here on Sports Talk. Coach, I don't want to say that this was a surprise, but I guess how gratifying and or surprising was the start of this run for your team?
Well, certainly gratifying. It wasn't a surprise to me because this team has done nothing but been on a constant incline here over the last 5 years. But it is a young group. I think surprising maybe because we have an inexperienced pitching staff. But this group has just made the decision that we have everything in the dugout we need to be successful, and it's fun to watch their belief in each other come out on the field every day and compete.
Yeah, it's odd with, again, you mentioned the young pitching staff. It's so hard to kind of survive through some of the very stark competition that you guys have had. I mean, you've played 8 teams from the Women's College World Series last year and really have come on with real great numbers with those. How have they adjusted, especially Kelsey, adjusted to kind of this grind that is basically SEC softball, where every week you could face a team that could be in Oklahoma City?
Absolutely. And you mentioned Kelsey O, who's a freshman for us. She's just getting seasoned right now in the SEC, but I think what she's learning as a young pitcher is that, hitters 1 through 9 could potentially take it out of the park. There's no release when you get to the bottom of the order, and it just talks about every pitch and the focus you have to be successful. But what's really nice, and I think all of our pitchers have gained, is that they really trust the defense behind them. So that's the part that they're able to attack the strike zone and just let the defense play. I would tell you this is the best defensive team I've had in my 8 seasons at South Carolina.
What moment stood out to you when you looked at your team, whether it was after one of these tournaments you played in the preseason or even when you got to the SEC season? What was the moment when you looked at your team and you said, man, we can be pretty good?
Ooh, that's a great question. I tell you, a moment that stood out to me was this weekend at Tennessee when we were down 2 in the 7th. And as a coach, you kind of get a feeling from your team sometimes if they're stressed or tight. And the whole game, we were down the whole time. And the feeling in our dugout was just this calm confidence. And I knew when the top of the order was coming back up to start 7th, I really knew we were going to win the game. It was an interesting feeling, and it was just about the resiliency and the presence that our team had in that moment. I would tell you, I don't think there's been just one other moment where I said, man, we're going to be really good. But I thought an indicator was we just kept finding ways to win. And I think it just speaks to this team's ability to just stay in it and compete, because there were several games this year we've gotten out hit and found a way to win. We certainly scored plenty to win. And then we've had these 1-0 games where we just pitched and played defense and got one in. So that's what I like about us, is that we win in different ways, and the kids are just finding ways to win ball games right now, which is fun.
We're talking to Bev Smith, the head coach of South Carolina softball. Again, the Gamecocks on the road at A&M this weekend. You mentioned the young pitching staff. I want to go to the person who kind of controls that pitching staff, and that, of course, is the senior backstop, Alyssa Vanderveer. How important is it to have somebody with seasoning in that position, not just for your pitching staff, but it seems like she's had an effect on the entire team with her leadership?
Yes, Alyssa Vanderveer, one, she's a kid that when she steps into the box, she's going to make any opposing pitcher nervous. She has tremendous power at the plate. And I think on the defensive side, she has a tremendous presence. She does a great job in terms of balls in the dirt and blocking. And she does a really nice job controlling the pitchers. And I think she just gives them the confidence when she can take a timeout and settle them down. Or, she's also a goofball. So she's the one that can get them to relax a little bit too. So I think just her experience has really helped with the youth in the circle for us.
I know that this is something that, as I've covered softball in the years that I've been, we were seeing a departure from the two-way players who are pitchers and hitters. But when you think about what Kayla brings, not only to your lineup when she's hitting as a DP or as a pitcher, and also what she can bring to you as a circle, that's just another X factor for you guys. How do you balance that with her and trying to make sure that every part of her game is fine-tuned?
Yeah, now that gets to be challenging at times, because often, Lisa Nobbs is always wanting her out there to play more defense, and our hitting coach wants her to hit more. And I'm probably the most selfish of making sure she gets her time on the mound. But when you've got an athlete that's as well-rounded as she is, we just kind of map out where she needs to be spending her time. But I tell you, with her on the mound and in the hitting lineup, it just gives us so many more options in terms of strategy. So her biggest gains, I think, have been at the plate this year. She's done a great job with her plate discipline and drawing walks. She's a power threat at the plate, and then certainly she's been great for us shutting down hitters too. So, and I just love the fact that she's from Hartsville. She's our hometown girl, and she's doing great things. And the beauty is she's just a sophomore.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because that leads me kind of to my next question, because of the fact that, there is good softball played in this state, but so much of the recruiting footprint, we talked about this during the opening of the season when we talked to you in the opening press conference, is that you have to get players out of California, you have to get players out of Florida, you have to get players out of Georgia, and even maybe you draw from some of the Northeast as well, because you do have a very big New Jersey presence. What do you think this run for you guys can do for the exposure of South Carolina softball?
Oh, I think it's tremendous. We've been on TV, we've got the facilities and the stadium to talk about. So I just think it's great that people are finally talking about South Carolina softball, because, we've been good. And I think this run and sweeping Tennessee was just kind of an exclamation point. And I feel like anything that shines a light on our program and the things we're doing here is great for our players, because they've certainly put in the time and the work to be good. And we've had the support of our administration. And I hope that's what people see when they watch the program on TV, is just the kind of the culture that we have at South Carolina, and then the support from the administration with the facilities. And it's just a great place to have a college experience.
You play the Aggies this weekend. What does Texas A&M look like?
I tell you, Texas, like every other SEC school, this solid 1 through 9, solid pitching staff. Texas A&M is a powerful offense, but I told the team today, it's going to be very much like matching up with Tennessee last week. It's going to be about who plays the best game on game day, because in my mind, these teams are all equal. There's a dugout full of softball talent, so we've got to come ready to play and play a solid 7 innings.
I'm not going to try and look too far ahead for you, but, you've been on the road in the postseason the last 4 or 5 years. What would it mean to host a regional at Beckham Field?
Well, I tell you, that's one of our goals this season, and we've talked about that as a team. We've been on the road the last 5 years, like you said, and we recognize the advantage that you have of being able to play at home. And we want to highlight our facilities. We want our fans to be there and be behind us. And that's one of our goals, until our players understand where we had to be better and pick up wins to be able to host at Beckham. So it is certainly one of our team's goals to be hosting at the end of the season.
There are 3 more home weekends in the regular season: the Arkansas weekend, the 6th through the 8th, the Missouri weekend, 20th through 22nd, and then Mississippi State, April the 27th through the 29th, before the ACC tournament goes up to the other Columbia, Missouri. Beverly Smith, head coach of South Carolina softball, good luck this week against A&M and the rest of the way.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on.
That's South Carolina softball coach Bev Smith. Again, number 9 in the country, number 8 in the RPI. They're 29-4. Their only losses to Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and FIU this season. We'll come back with more on Sports Talk when we return. South Carolina Radio Network.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We'll go around the horn on this final segment of the week here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Baseball scores around the state. South Carolina and Tennessee still scoreless there in the top of the third at Founders Park. Again, Cody Morris going against Garrett Stallings. Boston College has cut into Clemson's lead at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, middle of the fourth inning, 4-2 in favor of the Tigers. A two-run home run from Boston College has halved that lead. Clemson, of course, winning the opening game of the series. South Carolina doing the same over Tennessee. Coastal Carolina leads Georgia Southern 6-2, that game in Statesboro in the bottom of the third. And Elon with a 4-0 lead on College of Charleston, former South Carolina coach Chad Holbrook's squad.
Yeah, good touch by you. We've got to recognize what Bev Smith is doing at South Carolina, following somewhat of a legend at South Carolina, Joyce Compton, who's here 25 years, almost won 1,000 games. In her tenure before Bev Smith got here. And what is it, about 10 of the 14 teams in the SEC ranked?
They're all ranked. It's crazy. It's crazy. I think there's only 13 that play softball. 12 of the 13 are either ranked or receiving votes right now in the USA Softball Top 25. The only one that's not, Missouri.
And they were
very good.
Yeah, they were very good. What, last year? Didn't they make the College World Series?
They didn't make the College World Series last year. They have made in their recent history, but their program fell on some hard times with their head coach getting fired right before the season, days before the season, because of the fact that he and the athletic director got into some philosophical differences. He was accused of some verbal abuse by his players and former players on the squad, and it was basically more of a social type of basically a social construct issue, I think, involving the way that he coaches and the way that some believe that he should coach. And so they had to basically go to an interim coach right before the season, and that program has kind of fallen on hard times. But not South Carolina. South Carolina off to a 29-4 start. Their only losses, again, to Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and FIU. They are currently in the top of the second inning at Texas A&M with no score. Some news that just came out on the Clemson basketball front before we get to Tony Elliott. Elijah Thomas, Clemson's rising senior forward, announcing on Twitter that he is going to use his final year of eligibility at Clemson. He said this on Twitter: "I want to become a Little John legend, therefore I'm not going anywhere. We have unsatisfied team and unfinished business. Stay tuned." And that, again, jives with some of the information that we were hearing from head coach Brad Brownell. One of the players, of course, one of the three who are rising seniors, him, Sheldon Mitchell, and Marquise Reed. Of course, when you think about those three players, you wonder how that is going to go. And I think also you would like to think that none of these guys really have any reason to kind of test the pro market. But in my mind, seeing those guys in that locker room, you know that they have the same kind of feeling that Elijah Thomas has.
Well, Elijah Thomas, this is his time next year to really carve out a niche to make sure that he gets a good chance at the next level, because not only will it be as a senior year, he'll be more mature, he'll have another year in the system, and also he'll be counted on to be a leader for this team next year, and that means that he has to be somewhat dominant inside. So this could be his year to break out and maybe average close to a double-double next year for Clemson.
And we'll wonder whether or not he is still on the vegetarian diet, as we found out while we were at the NCAA tournament, trying to slim himself down with no meat.
Well, some people say they may be vegetarian, but is he cooking the string beans and fatback? I mean,
that's not that cheating? That's not what I know. No, I'm not inside his kitchen. To Clemson football, currently on hiatus right now. They last practiced on Wednesday, and they will practice once again on Wednesday. 5 practices remaining. They had a fantastic offensive outburst in their scrimmage on Wednesday, their second of the spring. 4 touchdown passes from Kelly Bryant. Each of the other quarterbacks had one as well. Tony Elliott caught up with our folks in Clemson earlier this week to talk about just how much this offense has become explosive.
A lot of good, but then there's some things we got to clean up. You know, I was pleased with We found some big plays. We were able to find some explosive plays all across the board at all positions. Still too many procedural things that we got to clean up. A couple situations in the red zone we didn't manage the right way. We finished the 1 2-minute scenario pretty good, and then the other 2-minute scenario we didn't finish the way we needed to do. So there's a lot of positive, but then there's also a lot for us to coach every position.
Did Travis do a little bit better on his pass protection? Yeah.
No, I have to look because I'm caught up in calling plays, but I don't remember any of the backs specifically giving up a sack, which is an area that we got to really improve from last season. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some technical issues. In terms of Travis, it was good to see Travis show up from an explosiveness standpoint. He made some runs, and he looked like Travis, and that's been a big challenge with him. Is just going to be consistent. Can he do it every single day, and then can he improve in the area of pass protection the way he needs to improve? So I was pleased with his day today.
How about the quarterbacks? How did they look?
And they all look good. I mean, all of them had an opportunity to lead touchdown drives. It's hard for me to tell who's throwing what, who's doing what, because I'm on the next play trying to figure out when Brent's going to bring that safety blitz. But, man, we got 4 guys that are, competing their butts off. All of them are good enough for us to win a lot of games with. And I'm excited just to get on the film and really break it down.
The other day, Jeff was saying that Trevor he shows a lot of patience and kind of absorb things really good. Do you see the same thing when you do watch him?
Yeah, no question. And that's probably the thing that with him is just his calm demeanor. I think the way that y'all see him every single day, that's the same way he is in the pocket. He's got just a natural pocket presence that you just can't coach. And the special ones, they have that. And, today was an opportunity, and I told him, I kind of kidded with him. I said, now it's for real. We're in the stadium. We're on the grass. Coaches are off the field. You're on your own. And he just kind of said, I'm ready, coach. And I'm anxious to get in there and see, because I know there were some situations with all the quarterbacks, not just Trevor, but with all of them that they probably wish they had a play or two back. And that's going to be the fun part, getting in and challenge those guys to see how they respond.
Did Hunter get a go today?
Hunter Johnson. Oh, yeah. All 4 of them went, yep.
Were you pleased with the tempo today, and how noticeably different is it when Trevor's in there?
From a tempo standpoint, he's still trying to learn to drive, and that's one thing that we really challenge all of the quarterbacks is quarterback drive the tempo. So as soon as the whistle is blown, you're already with your eyes to the side, and you're herding the cattle, in the direction to get back on the ball. Tempo wasn't where it needed to be in between plays. I think that we did a good job of finding some opportunities to have some of our tempo plays going, but in between plays, just the last 2 practices is not what it's been prior to leaving. And again, a guy's been off for a week, and that's an opportunity for us to coach. But from a tempo standpoint, we had 91 plays. We did some good things from a tempo standpoint, but just in between plays, that's an area where we're going to coach these guys hard.
That is the co-offensive coordinator of the Clemson Tigers, Tony Elliott. I know Brett Venables, who we heard from earlier this week, was very cranky about the defense not playing. But you have to think that the offense has now kind of caught up to the defense, because the defense played such dominant football over the last couple of years, last 2 years specifically. Is this the offense catching up, or is this more of an indication of what's been lost on the defensive side of the football?
No, I think it's getting the defense ready for what's in store next year, because let's face it, with that defensive line, they're not going to see much of a pass rush. They're going to be a lot of 2-3 step drops.
Yes.
And a lot of times defensive linemen, if they can't get into the backfield, they get frustrated. So they have to play hands up, get tip balls, do that sort of thing, because you're not going to get sacks all the time. Nobody's going to call the 5 and 7 step drop. And the key to that is that a lot of offenses have to tear pages out of their playbook, because they look at that Clemson defensive line. That ain't going to work against this team.
Yeah. And another thing from my perspective is that they're not going to see a better offense, in my mind, in the ACC than the one they'll see in practice. Yeah. So they'll only be helped by what a second-year starter, Kelly Bryant, can make, and also from what the skill position players. And I love that they asked about Travis Etienne's pass protection, because that's one thing that kind of kept him out of the loop for a lot of them late in the season. You needed to see him along the field a lot more during the season late, and you couldn't because of his pass protection.
And Etienne is like a lot of freshman receivers. In high school, all they did was they were given the ball and told to run it. And they didn't work on the other facets of the game. But now I think after 1 year, he thinks if he's going to play at the next level, you got to be good at this, this, and this. And that's how you make it at the next level.
I'll be at the USC spring game. Full coverage of that on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and also full coverage and wrap-ups from the 2 baseball series at Clemson and South Carolina. Phil returns on Monday, and of course, we'll start looking ahead to the Masters in Augusta this upcoming week as well. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Will Pelagic saying so long.